GOAT district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back, now all of a sudden they don't make any sense? Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back in the district. Another weekend of preseason action. We got a full house tonight. We got a big guest. You guys see from the title. You see him on the screen. You know him from Ship Chasing. You know him from NBC Edge. You know him from the Good Football Show. Pat Kerrane, welcome back to the GOAT District, brother.
Thanks, guys. Excited to be here.
Pumped to have you, man. Pumped to have you. As you could see, all the GOATs showed up for this one. We're ready to, as you guys know, we bring in the best guests, the biggest winners, the best analysts. Tonight, we have a man that does both. Smash the like, smash the subscribe. Theo, I know you're anxious to get this thing going. I could see you chopping at the bits. Let's talk league winners. Let's talk ADP steals. Let's squeeze Pat for our guests to help these guys win their leagues this year.
So welcome, Pat. And yeah, Pat certainly is a very sharp analyst, but he also has a lot of skin in the game. You recently put together a couple of main event slows. I imagine you've got a lot of live drafts coming up this week. We've got kind of a tricky spot. Dan and I split some teams. Andrew and I split some teams. It's that 106, that 107, and Dan kind of pushed the 108 in there. What has kind of been your optimal approach with respect to that like middle of the first round position and trying to maximize your build? Maybe talk about your strategies in the first round and also how you would follow up in the second round with that sort of a strategy.
I completely agree that that's the tricky spot. I think, if you're at 6, the optimal approach is to pray Jamar Chase falls, because it's like once that doesn't happen, you really are. And it's flat. I think it's sort of positionally flat because you could take Kelsey, you could take a Diggs, Eckler, but then I think the next round is kind of positionally flat too because you might have Kyle Pitts come back. I think Debo's in play. There's lots of running backs there. And then the third round, I think, is also somewhat positionally flat because I like Waller and Kittle, who are pretty much always there at that spot in the mid-third, at least one of them. And then a ton of wide receivers that I like there. And, maybe you could get an ETN or something. So I think it kind of comes down to how you want to play it at tight end would be like the first major question. I think the thing that I'm more worried about is getting boxed out of receiver in round 2 than I am running back, because I think there's some really good running backs that you can get in the middle of round 2. You really can't get boxed out of a round 2 running back, I think. So that pushes me maybe a little bit more towards playing it through Diggs. But Eckler's tough to pass on. So I think I'd rather be at 108 than 106 and let a couple other people make that tricky decision and probably still get Diggs and then come back, get one of the better running backs. And then you're probably still before the major tier break at wide receiver, although I've seen what I consider the tier break to happen as early as like 304. So, but in that worst case scenario, you could maybe still land Waller or Kittle. So yeah, I kind of lean towards making sure I get the receiver first. But I think you can kind of play it any number of ways. And that approach for me comes down mostly to feeling really comfortable with getting Pitts in the second or really comfortable getting Waller or Kittle in the third, or, playing it a little cute and trying to get one of them to come back in the fourth. I don't feel the need to really prioritize Kelsey because I know I have those backstops.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point about how potentially the flatness makes the 108 a little more appealing because you also might get exposure to somebody who could potentially be there in the second round that is going to go before you pick when you have that 106. Is that kind of how you're seeing it too, Dan? Like, Dan, we have a 108 in a Football Guys slow right now. We were happier getting that than 6. I'd imagine you felt the same way.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't love any of those 6, 7, 8, 9. And it's for exactly the reasons that Pat said. I mean, it's just, you're picking into a flat area. When you're coming back in the second round, really CeeDee Lamb is probably the only receiver you've really got a shot at. Otherwise, you're going to be either pushing up, Debo or Tyreek or Mike Evans or somebody like that, which I don't feel real comfortable doing. So you're almost pressed into taking a tight end or a running back in the second round unless CD happens to fall for you. And, which is fine. I mean, if you want to do a, 2 running back build or something like that, you could do it. But yeah, that's why I end up on Diggs a lot of the time. And there are even times where I'll just say, screw it. And I'll take Lamb up there with that first pick and then let things come back around and, take one of the best running backs. I'm just trying to mix it up so I don't end up with too much Diggs exposure there.
Yeah, that's what we did in our main, Dan, in the 109. We think we were really hoping for Diggs and really thought Diggs would come, and he went 108, and so we pushed Lamb up to 109. So we did exactly that move. I guess the one question I have for you, Pat, is how often is Pitts going to actually make it back to that 204, 205 with his literally one catch tonight, first play of the game or whatever, absolute smash. Didn't think he'd even come back in the game. I think they put him in for one goal line play, and then that was that for Pitts' night. Are we going to see mid-second round Pitts still, or is that going to be more of a unicorn than he is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question and kind of changes up things in the second round if you can't get him. We got him in our first main event. We had the 105, and we got him to come back. Then we've since prioritized him. We took him over Andrews in one draft out of the 110. We just locked up Pitts. I think it was kind of a co-managed draft where I probably lean Andrews there, but no problem taking Pitts. I think he should be more. You should not be able to get Pitts in the late second. That just seems unfair. I'm actually glad when it does have some other drafts late. I'm I don't want the early part of the board to have access to that combo. It just feels kind of screwed up. So I think it's only natural that Pitts' ADP will rise. As far as a bet on talent, it's just such an easy click for me. The profile was so good coming in. What he did as a rookie, so impressive for a tight end. And he basically plays wide receiver. So I really like Pitts, and I think he will probably continue to move up.
Follow up to the question, potentially if you went with a running back start out of the middle of the first round here, would you still consider going Kittle or Waller in the third? And do you think you could kind of make up for it at wide receiver if you went running back, tight end in potentially a tight end premium format like the FFPC?
So we actually had this happen out of the 8th spot. Diggs went – Andrew, you took Diggs, so thanks for that, buddy. You took him 6. Then Kelsey –
yeah.
Kelsey goes, and then we got Eckler 8. Najee came back in the second round, so we went ahead and picked him. Both Andrews and Pitts were gone. So you're just in that spot where, it's Debo or Tyreek, or you grab a running back. Felt like the value was good enough on Harris there. And then in the third round, the real decision point was, are we going to get 2 boxed out a receiver here? And I think maybe in a year or two ago, probably would have gone with the tight end, feeling more confidence that we would have been able to get the receivers in 5, 6, at 4, 5, 6, 7. But that's not really how drafts have been going this year. It feels like the late 5th, there can be a real tier break before you pick again. And so what we did was we took Mike Williams, and then Kittle did come back. So we played it a little cute at tight end, but it didn't burn us. And I feel really good that we did that because we got Elijah Moore in the 5th. That was basically, I think, sort of the last of that tier. And then, we had to rip a ton of wide receivers to feel okay at that position.
I find you still have that challenge, guys. Even if you're not necessarily going tight end early, like Dan and I are football guys. We managed to get Etienne in the 4th, so we got 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds, which I know is not popular in this crew. But And then we went quarterback in the 6th because we stacked Juju and Mahomes. So again, if you're going heavy, a little heavier running back early, whether you take a tight end there or not, you're still wondering, like, do I want to hammer quarterback early now? I need to catch up a bit at receiver, or are we comfortable? Because like you guys said, like we threw up a board earlier, I think it was Andrew, and there was that 5th round where it just pisses yellow, and then all of a sudden, like you said, Pat, you're into the next tier of receivers. So you kind of got to manage that, as you go into those deeper rounds, if you do not address the receiver position heavy early.
I wanted to, if everybody's good with kind of the structural question here, I wanted to backtrack to Pitts. We also play NFFC. We have a lot of NFFC listeners and people watching right now who play predominantly NFFC, and also some FFWC players. How would you approach Kyle Pitts in a non-tight end premium? Like, are you thinking that you should push him up in this format, or are you kind of looking to take him when Andrews goes? Then that's kind of like a trigger for Pitts. Where are you at on that, Pat?
So I've been drafting a lot on Underdog and DraftKings and in Best Ball, and there was a period where you could consistently get Pitts in the late 3rd on Underdog, and sometimes there was like another kind of smaller window where he would fall to the like 402, 403 range. And I actually changed like my whole tight end strategy around that. I was like, I'm going to take a Les Kelsey. I'm not ever reaching for Andrews. Like getting Pitts in that range, and that's just half point PPR, I just think was such a smash. And on DraftKings, he typically goes more like the early 3rd of the 2-3 turn now. But I think that's great. Like, to me, it makes, if he was a wide receiver, I think he would make a lot of sense in like the mid 3rd. He's a really strong prospect. I know he scored 1 touchdown last year, but he's a big dude. Theoretically, there should be some touchdown upside. He had an incredibly strong, he had over 2 yards per out run as a rookie, which is not just elite for a tight end, it's elite for a receiver. Obviously, he's super highly drafted. Like, he has everything we're looking for in terms of a breakout wide receiver. That tight end eligibility is still a massive bonus in non-tight end premium leagues. So, yeah, I think he's a priority in every format right now. Like, I don't think, he's much more expensive in FFPC, but when that discount comes into play in regular PPR leagues, and you're getting him at like the 2-3 turn, I love him there too.
Dan, do you think that's where he's going to end up? But when we're drafting like NFFC at the end of the month?
More than likely, yeah. Though in the NFFC, I mean, there are enough guys that just they really don't they don't prioritize tight end at all, and so that always seems to make him fall at least a little bit further than I think he's going to. And if the right people are in the right order in the draft, he can fall actually a pretty good ways. So, that. It kind of depends on who you're drafting with and what their philosophy towards tight end is. But Pitts is a guy that, like, if I can get him in the late 2nd, early 3rd, I'm definitely taking him there. Early 2nd round, it's a little bit tough to push him up over like CeeDee Lamb. Anytime after that, though, I'd be pretty comfortable taking Pitts in the NFFC.
Andrew, kind of where's your head at on that for like a non-tight end premium?
Yeah, not above some of those wide receivers that we like, but I think that he's right there after. I think late seconds. So when we do our NFFC super, and I got to do my own research because it's your space, not mine. But
it's our space now, Andrew.
I got. Yeah, you're right. I got to make sure that my arguments are well founded to get you and Dan on board for that Kyle Pitts.
Well, I think that's actually an interesting point you bring up. So the Super is a closed 12-man league, whereas the NFFC Primetime is sort of like the FFPC main event, where it's you're competing for a larger prize. Pat, are you more open to pushing Kyle Pitts in a tournament setting with the unknown upside, where you might lean more towards more of a we've seen it type guy in a Kelsey or Mandrews if it's a closed league, or are you just kind of treating him the same way in both?
I think in case of Pitts, I'm probably treating him pretty similarly. The guys I'm tending to push up, like I really like Kyler Murray's playoff schedule. Pete's been really hammering. Pete Overzet's really been hammering the playoff schedule for Kyler, and we took Kyler in our first 3 main events. I think his price is really nice just in general, but also you get that playoff format upside. So that type of stuff, I think you want to push a little bit. But in terms of the breakout profiles, I mean, you still got to beat 11 other teams. So, I think the Pitts breakout profile is very appealing in both formats.
And I wanted to have one quick follow-up. Go ahead, Andrew. In regards to Mandrews, this is not on the show sheet, but we've seen Isaiah Likely really, really flash. And I kind of want to get all 3 of your thoughts on Likely. I saw a great stat from Nathan Yankee on PFF. Yahanke, am I saying that correctly? Dan, Yahanke, right? Janky. Okay. All right. I tried. It was no tight end who has produced a 99-yard first half in a preseason game has ever finished less than tight end 20 overall for the season. You're seeing the Baltimore beat writers come out and say that they expect Likely to be the number 3 target on the team behind Bateman and Andrews, and they're going to use him as some kind of move tight end that just sees a lot of the field. Are we drafting Likely now? Is this something that should be in our late round tight end strategy in like FFPC, guys? Are we buying into the Likely hype?
I have a little more trouble with it. Athletically, he's a real dud.
Big time.
Yeah. And those guys just generally don't hit. I mean, that's not to say that it's impossible. And, maybe Baltimore is desperate enough that he will. But, I guess, 19th, 20th round, you do what you got to do.
That's where I'm at on it. I think I haven't taken him at all in best ball. Because I think you're cutting, you can't cut anybody, and he does strike me as a guy that you really might want to cut if you're checking your best ball team week 6 or something. But I liked him as a prospect. I thought he looked a lot like Mark Andrews. The comps I had for him were Mark Andrews, Adam Troutman, Hunter Long, and Clive Walford. So not an incredible set of comps, but I think he's not a great athlete. He's a bit undersized, but he's kind of a big receiver, and he was pretty productive in college. So, I think having that production from the tight end, I'll trade a certain amount of athleticism for the production, because you're kind of at the NFL level, you kind of have these guys splitting into 2 camps of players. Some of them are basically just glorified tackles, and some of them are big receivers. And Likely, at least, I think does fit into the mold of kind of the big slot receiver type. So I'm still skeptical that he'll get that much playing time, because are they really playing like a base 12 personnel? But, if Andrews were to miss any time, maybe there's some appeal.
I think a lot of fab money is going to get spent on him. Not all at once, not in one single week, but 5 different people picking him up and dropping him over the course of the season. He's going to end up accumulating a ton of fab bids with people being annoyed and throwing him back.
The most churn. He'll be the most highly churned player. Yeah, I could totally see that.
We're going to call him butter. He's nothing but churn, man. Nothing but churn.
I'm kind of open. I think I'm more open to him than maybe you guys are. I think that Dan, the athletic profile is ugly. Like his, the relative athletic score, all the metrics look bad, but he just flashes. Like his highlights look great, and he makes plays in the middle of the field where we've seen Lamar Jackson have success. And I think that so there's 2 trains of thought here. If you're off of him as the number 3 target, and the beats are kind of on that, I mean, it's Duvernay, Prochet, and Likely, then it means maybe we should like Rashad Bateman a little bit more, because I think that means we're talking about he should get a north of 25% potentially target share, and Mandrews should be our tight end 1 overall. But if you're not kind of on that train, then I think likely getting him late and at least being able to watch the first 2 games of the regular season, where you're getting him in like the 18th round, I think he might pay off. I don't know. Some
Yeah,
strange things happen.
You're definitely making a good case, for a main event or football guys or something like that. Um, you know, first off, because we can change, we can throw players back. As Pat was saying, I've been drafting mostly best balls lately, so I've kind of been on the same thing as Pat. Where I'm just like, yeah, I can't make my button hit the finger or finger hit the button on that, but. I do think it's a good point that, they probably are going to play a lot of 12 personnel. I mean, basically the way that they went out and drafted this year and everything else tells us that they plan to play a lot of 12. And if they're going to do that, likely he's going to be on the field as one of the tight ends in that. See, I was thinking it would be like Andrews and a blocker, but if they're going to be, throwing Andrews and Likely out there, that definitely does change things a little bit, and you could see your way to him being the third target, especially since Duvernay and Prochet haven't really done anything over the past couple of years already.
Yeah, and the Likely stuff. I mean, he was very productive in college, but he was also really efficient. He had 2.99 yards per out run in his final season, which is an elite mark. He had 2.42 yards per hour over his career, which was what Mark Andrews had in college. Kyle Pitts was at 2.36. So, he was efficient and productive as a pass catcher, which I definitely think should get him on your radar. But I like the point about Bateman. Hayden Winks did some research on yards per out run showing that, if guys are in two tight end sets, or if there's only two wide receivers on the field at a given time, the yards per out run for the wide receivers, it tends to be higher because they're not competing against as many wide receivers. So, if you think about it from Bateman's perspective, if they're pulling, I know it's like Devin Duvernay and James Prochet, not exactly the best wide receivers that are coming off the field, but still, a wide receiver's coming off and a rookie tight end's coming on. It's probably easier to get a target for Bateman in those sets than, out of three wide receiver sets. So it probably slightly should boost Bateman.
One more structural question. I think, Theo, you had a specific tight end question in a second, but Pat, I was listening to the first mini-sode of your slow, and I think you guys did go naked tight end there with only one tight end in the main event. Is there a cutoff point if you're looking at tight end ADP or your tight end rankings where you'd feel comfortable going truly naked tight end through a whole draft? Does that end at the Kittle Waller? Does that end after maybe Hawkinson? Is there a cutoff point? At least from my end, I've been either drafting one of those top few guys. I think I've got one instance we should talk about to Goddard, but otherwise basically just letting it go until the 19th, 20th round for a likely type. Do you have a cutoff for naked tight end in your mind?
I think the cutoff for me would probably be Kittle or Waller.
Yeah,
but I don't think it'd be bad if it was let's say Goddard or Hawkinson or something. I could get on board with that. I just think at that point I personally would probably want to take a second. But one of the things in adjusting to the FFPC format has been one of the surprises has been you really can find tight ends on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
So I really don't mind, especially if the tier of tight ends where I think there's upside goes a little earlier than I want, or in this particular draft we did a true zero running back build. Our first running back was Devin Singletary. Our RB2 was Michael Carter. RB3 Kenneth Gainwell. Those picks coincided with that tight end run.
That's right.
So we would have had to take, by that point, Higbee, Everett, Engram, all gone when we took Gainwell. We would have had to take Noah Fant over Gainwell as our RB3. I don't think we could have afforded to do that.
Yep.
So I think you can more easily find usable tight end weeks on the waiver wire because the running backs do tend to get snapped up very quickly. There's a lot of fab money that gets spent on those guys.
That's right. And I think that's just more structurally of what's happening with how you draft your team in the first, 8-10 rounds kind of dictates it's probably a better move to be missing on those tight ends in 11 through 15. You'd rather be taking the wide receivers, or probably more likely the running backs in those rounds. So yeah, that's what I've been finding myself doing. Dan knows it's a pretty bad dad joke, but I've just been saying let the tight ends do their best Tom Brady impression with the free falling. Just either you take one of the first 5 or 6, or you just let the whole thing go and see where you shake out in the late teens. So.
That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, Theo and I definitely did that in a RotoWire online championship last week, we kept getting sniped at tight end, so we were just like, yeah, screw it.
But you guys ended up going what, Gerald Everett pretty late, like in the mid-teens, no? Or
yeah,
pretty
late.
Gerald Everett falls big time in NFFC and FFWC. Like, you get him like free. You get Hunter Henry, your boy Andrew. You get Hunter Henry's free in a lot of these. David Njoku's free. So like, there's guys that are free in those formats. I know that Dan's not the biggest Njoku guy, but he's free. So there's something to be said with that. One guy who's not quite free, but it seems like we could be looking back a couple of months from now, kind of laughing at his ADP. Last night in an FFWC draft, mind you, it's a 4-point passing touchdown format where the quarterbacks get slightly pushed down because of the two flexes. I got Pat Mahomes in the 8th round. He's going at like the 4-5 turn on underdog right now. Is the fantasy community correctly pricing Mahomes? He's like QB3 almost everywhere, and once in a while he goes a little further down. Perhaps somebody takes a Lamar Jackson ahead of him. Are we mispricing him? Like a truly elite talent that this is the cheapest he's gone since, his breakout first year starting in Kansas City? Or do you think this is something that could really come back to bite us? Pat, kind of where are you at on Mahomes?
We almost have to be mispricing him, right? I mean, it feels like I think one of the issues is that some of the quarterbacks, I don't really get the way the quarterbacks are being drafted this year. Like Josh Allen goes and then like 2 or 3 rounds pass and the next guy will go. And I'm not that much more confident in Allen than the other guys. So you have a chance to get Herbert, Mahomes, Lamar, Kyler much later. You could throw Hurts in there. So I don't have as much Mahomes as I'd like because, like I said, we were prioritizing Kyler. But, I mean, you could see this being a massive season for Mahomes. There's no reason that he needs to take a step back just because the targets aren't going to funnel as heavily to one elite talent. Like, I think in some ways, like the offense should be very functional with Marcus Valdes-Scantling as a deep threat. He does that particular skill quite well. I don't really see him developing into like a ton more than kind of the one-trick pony deep threat, but that keeps defenses honest. I think Sky Moore has a lot of upside, especially as the season goes on. Juju, the reports have been very strong on him. Kelsey's still Kelsey. So the offense, I think, is set up to continue to really be driven by Mahomes. It's built completely around Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. Andy Reid is going to run a pass-heavy offense. There's really no reason, I think, to get nervous about Mahomes. He just feels underpriced. I think, I have a lot of exposure in best ball. I feel like maybe I'm not being aggressive enough in the main event because, like I said, getting Kyler, getting Herbert. I think we have 1 share so far, but I'd like to have more at these prices.
Right. Yeah. JD and I just picked him up in the 6th round in Football Guys. Early awesome. 6 for sure, but it's like you see value like that, and it's really hard to lay off it for me. And and the other part of the equation is in Kansas City. I mean, we're all swooning over Pacheco and all that, but I mean the running game is a shit show, and we all know it, and Andy Reid knows it, and so that means the offense is definitely going to be flowing through Mahomes' arms and sometimes his legs. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Mahomes run in 7 or 8 touchdowns this year.
I think that's an awesome take, Dan. It's kind of like the unknown upside of his running ability. He's been so effective, and if it's kind of like a Superman season, I love that take, Dan. I mean, I think he's a guy that we want to try to get more of. It seems like the quarterback position's just kind of devalued, but it's crazy to me to see 30-pick difference between Josh Allen and Mahomes in certain drafts. Andrew, do you have any Mahomes? I know like a lot of your builds, you're ending up with some good quarterbacks, but do you have any Mahomes yet?
Yeah, I've got a couple early Football Guys where I drafted Mahomes. I think that those are Mahomes Kelsey teams. Again, it's not time for the question, but I'm worried that I'm having more problems with this quarterback tight end early situation than I originally thought. Now that you kind of picking and poking holes at it. Yeah, no, I have, and I like pairing him with Kelsey. As you know, I'm not drafting a ton of Juju this year, but I do like the Mahomes. I feel even better after hearing Dan, talk about the rushing upside, which is something obviously I didn't consider. I just like the idea and value of Mahomes when he came up in the drafts.
You brought up MVS, Pat. How are you? And I've heard some great takes you had on Sky Moore in your podcast with John Daigle. What way are you approaching the Kansas City wide receiver situation, and sort of which one do you like the most at ADP? If you could pick one wide receiver to take in the Kansas City offense for your redraft teams.
For a while, it was MVS for best ball because I just feel like he's going to have his weeks, and he's going to be out there. I don't have to worry about him. I think earning a role or whatever. Like he's, I think, going to have a very specific season-long role in the offense. For season-long, though, I haven't been picking when to start him doesn't seem that fun. So I like betting on Sky Moore as this kind of breakout bet. He was a really strong prospect. He kind of has everything you're looking for, except for the fact that he went to a small school. But then, the fact that he was a 3-year player, getting a chance to get drafted in the second round, that's a rare profile. We rarely see that. Devontae Adams, the last guy like that to come out of a non-Power 5 school as a 3-year player and get drafted in the second round. Now, he could take 3 years to turn into anything like Adams did. So I do think there's that's still a red flag with the small school profile. But he was awesome in the intermediate area of the field. He was terrific after the catch. That yak ability was not gadgety stuff. It was kind of the stuff I think that'll work really well in an Andy Reid offense. It's getting him the ball over the middle on slants and kind of staple routes and that type of stuff. Dwayne McFarland has shown that he was one of the guys who was really efficient on kind of NFL staple routes, like slants. So he's someone that I think is, the 8th round type of value. You can probably afford to sit on him for a few weeks and wait for him to come on and kind of be this late season hammer. But honestly, I've not been on Juju very much in best ball. He is someone that I have been interested in the main event because I think the range of outcomes is probably fairly wide on him, and I think the upside is really high if he is the guy from a few years ago. And I think there's reasons to be skeptical of that, but if he is that guy, it could be awesome. And he's not priced at a level where you absolutely have to have him be a star. If you miss on a 5th round pick, you can survive that. But I think he does strike me as a dude out of the 5th round who could be a real game changer for your team. So
and he showed us the top 10. He showed us a top 10 already, with Ben. So now he's going to Mahomes. So that, like you said.
Yeah, I think you got. To me, you get your McCole Hardman and your MVS in best ball, but I am drafting those guys, and I'm more interested in Juju in the main event. I'm taking Sky Moore in all formats. But get your Chiefs. Are we ever going to get this again, where you can get Chiefs this cheap? The start, the late 5th round or whatever is the first guy off the board from the wide receivers. This feels like a real opportunity here, and so I would be less interested in being exactly right on which guy you have to have than being right about this is the year to draft cheap Chiefs.
Would you ever consider drafting Juju and Sky Moore in the same FFPC main event? Obviously, if you have Mahomes, that would be great. But if you don't have Mahomes, just as a bet on a potential top 2 in Kansas City?
We did it, yeah. One of the drafts out of the 11, we took Juju 5'11". Didn't end up getting Mahomes. Played for him to come back because we had Elijah Moore. We were able to get him in the 6th and got Kyler to fall to us. We ended up stacking him up later with Rondo Moore. And then we got Kyler 7th, Sky Moore 8th. So, yeah. I think that's totally fine. To me, Sky Moore's path on the field is through McCole Hardman. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things about Juju is that I think he's been upset with how much he's been in the slot. When he was at his best, he was only playing about 2/3 of his snaps in the slot. So yeah, he's going to play a lot in the slot, but I don't think he needs to be exclusively a slot receiver. His upside scenarios involve him not being exclusively a slot receiver, I think. But then also Sky Moore was versatile. He played both in the slot and out wide throughout his college career, and he had some of his best production while out wide. So both guys, I think, need to be in the slot some, but you can have them kind of rotating with which guy is outside and which guy's in the slot, and they can be on the field together. I think with MVS is kind of a clear cut, clear out route type of guy, and those guys really operating in the shallow and intermediate areas and racking up a ton of targets. And Mecole Hardman, I think, probably best suited is like a gadgety, fourth wide receiver depth speedster type of guy.
Thought experiment, Pat. 2v2, your favorite. And I think I know the answer that you do. Would you do Elijah Moore and Kyler, or Mahomes and Olave or Ayuk? Would you trade that to get the Mahomes paired up with the Juju and the Sky Moore, or would you keep it the way that you did with Elijah and Kyler?
I think Elijah and Kyler. Although, I mean, I don't know. I'm open to the idea that Mahomes and Ayuk is the better pairing. That feels very close to me. I guess it's
tight.
It's tight. Yeah.
Moore's
exciting
tight,
though.
Yeah. But who even knew at that point whether you get Kyler back? So I think that was good value. I think you got him off.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the Kansas City strength of schedule against pass defenses weeks 15 through 17 is it's pretty tasty. You're going at Houston, Seattle at home, Denver at home. And we know that Kansas City and Denver can definitely shoot it out sometimes. So, it's not as if that's destined to be a low-scoring game or anything like that. So, I like that that championship run schedule and being able to stack up a couple 3-2s there.
How are you handling the running back position right now in Kansas City, Pat?
What's going on with your boy Rojo?
Well, you asked about Kansas City, so I don't know why we're talking about Rojo.
Where's my air horn, man? Where the hell's my air horn?
Oh, man.
I mean, that it feels tougher for me. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is very good, so that makes it tough. I mean, he's, there was probably some really good prices on him early, but he seems to be moving up. But I don't really know why. If Pacheco's, displacing everybody, I don't know why he'd stop with Rojo. So I don't know. I feel like I kind of missed the boat on Pacheco. I don't like chasing him up. I mean, I've seen him go in the 7th, and he consistently goes in the 9th now. I don't want to be chasing him up there. I know he's fast and everything, and he's a bigger dude, but he was not productive. And I've seen clips and stuff of him missing obvious holes and not running the right plays. So it seems like maybe he really is the new Rojo, But for me right now, I'm like, I think McKinnon's the way to play it. He's fallen. Everyone's like, well, McKinnon, yes. Basically they're going to cut both Rojo and McKinnon. It's like, no, they're not going to cut one of them, and it's probably Rojo. The guy has not played any snaps with Mahomes. So McKinnon, you get a chance to see what his role is week 1. You can throw him back at his, late double-digit prices. It costs you nothing. And CEH has been particularly bad in the passing game, which is weird because he was kind of drafted to be this passing down back, but he's not been efficient at all. He's consistently gotten passed by other backs, including McKinnon last year in the playoffs on those passing downs. So, you can play McKinnon as this kind of, standalone value receiving back, but maybe kind of like Darrell Williams, he starts to earn more and more over the course of the season. So it's become McKinnon for me of the way to play it. If CEH were to fall again, if the Pacheco hype got really out of control, then he would become interesting at a certain point. But he just has to be really cheap for me because I'm very dubious of his talent level.
Pivoting over, the second-round wide receivers have been kind of like a cheat code the last few years. You've seen a lot of big breakouts. Besides the obvious names like Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle, who are your favorite second-year wide receivers to target right now in drafts? And are there any under-the-radar type second-year guys that you think people should be a little more excited about?
Yeah, we've talked about Bateman. We talked about Moore. I like both those guys. I think Kyle Pitts is basically a second-year wide receiver. You should think about him like that. Waddle's pretty well priced. I don't think he's a smash where he's going. I think, very appropriate ADP, but I like him. I think Devontae Smith is a little undervalued. Not someone I really expected to be on, but he's going, there's a pretty big gap between him and Moore usually. And I like getting him where, you're getting some upside that maybe his role has changed from last year. He's a deep threat last year. It's not really who he was in college. I think maybe A.J. Brown helps change his role to where he's seeing more kind of intermediate targets. There's obviously scenarios where he just gets buried by A.J. Brown. But he's priced at a level where you can survive that and take the upside swing on him. The under the radar guy I would say is probably Rondale Moore. I think specifically for the main event football guys, really any kind of managed leagues, like we're going to get a lot of information on him in week 1, right? Like last year they didn't play him at all, but I think it was actually kind of smart that they didn't, because what they did is they kept Christian Kirk in the slot, and they did not move Kirk to the outside once DeAndre Hopkins was hurt. Kirk was playing very well in the slot, so they kept him there. They brought in Antoine Wesley. That kind of boxed out Rondale Moore. But now with Kirk gone, they've got Marquise Brown. They've got A.J. Green, both those guys very much outside wide receivers. It makes all the sense in the world to have Rondale Moore playing a full-time role out of the slot. If we get that, I think very bullish. If we don't get that, maybe wait around to week 2, but like we're cutting bait. If he's not playing a full-time role very early in the season, he's definitely not going to be playing a full-time role when DeAndre Hopkins gets back. So you get a lot of information week 1. You also get a lot of information over the first 6 weeks just about how good he is, how efficient he is. And if he's very efficient, then I think maybe it's A.J. Green who sees his playing time reduced considerably when Hopkins is back, because that would kind of make sense to keep the slot guy in the slot and have DeAndre Hopkins playing a lot on the outside. That's a pretty sweet 3 wide receiver set if Rondale Moore is as good as we thought he might be coming into the league. So he feels like someone who's got a really strong ceiling for the price. I mean, a really high ceiling, I think, for the price. He gets you off to a fast start if you need a wide receiver there. Maybe you went a little more running back heavy up front. I mean, he could have a lot of production over those first 6 weeks. And then you also have multiple kind of obvious exit points where you're like, that he's not been what I thought he was going to be, and this is a clear point where he's not going to be a roster clogger. He's not going to be, one of these rookies that, I like drafting rookies, but sometimes you hold on to him for too long because you don't know whether it's time to move on yet. So he's a really nice, well-priced second-year guy, I think.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, stupid comments. Let me get out of the way, Theo, and then you can go. And I know JD has a promo. Pat, I'm just glad you guys are finally on the Pitbull, the Mr. Worldwide brothers, the Wandale and the Rondale. So obviously I'm all over that. I love the Pitbull brothers. All right, Theo, real question, you go, and then promo.
Where would you be comfortable pushing Rondale Moore, like in FFPC? Where would you be comfortable drafting him that you think you'd get a good return on your investment? And because you see certain boards where wide receiver might get pushed up, certain boards where it falls. Where are you comfortable taking Rondale Moore?
I think by like the 8th round, you can do it. I probably wouldn't do it in the 7th, but I think by the 8th, we had a decision in like our first draft where we wanted. I kind of was more on Chase Claypool, and Ben Gretsch was very much, thinking like, well, hey, let's talk about Rondale, or maybe we go running back to play for Rondale, but basically, Rondale should have been the guy there, not Chase Claypool. Obviously, this is before the Pickens emergence, so clearly, in retrospect, I really wish we went more there. But even at the time, I think Moore was probably the right decision, and I think that would have put us at a 9th or 10th round more, which would have been real sweet. But yeah, I think right around the 8th round, like there's kind of a drop off there, and so yeah, I think he's fine in that range.
Crazy Hopkins right now being disrespected. I just picked him up in the 9th round of a best ball tournament on FFPC, the 125 buy, and stacking him with Murray and Marquise. But I find he's being disrespected big time. If you can get him at a value, grab him.
Yeah, he really falls in some drafts. I mean, I've seen a lot of drafts where he's going right where he should, but there are others where he mysteriously falls way down.
Dan, let me just throw in. Sorry, Theo, I got. Andrew was trying to help me out, and then I totally threw it off the rails with my looking at my board here. But we gotta give a quick word to our partners at the FFPC. Guys, in the descriptions of the show, the comments of the show, I've posted all the links to our partners, myffpc.com, where you play against the best, play the best platform. And I got to say this, their app right now is awesome. I keep forgetting to mention that. I'm one of those where I had the app initially. I wasn't, I was using it more on my browser, but recently I've been forced to use it more on my phone, and man, it makes it nice to draft on there if you're forced to use your phone or if that's your favorite. So check out myffpc.com. Right now, they got some awesome tournaments, including the BBT, the best ball tournament for 200 grand. They've got a super flex $35 buy-in for 10 grand for first place. They've got the main event. They've got the football guys for 500 grand. You could play for up to $1 million. Guys, check out myffpc.com, and then you'll see a link down there for Underdog and Viridian Global. Theo, back to you, brother.
We had a question in the chat. Where are you at on the Sun God on Ross St. Brown?
I like him. I think I don't know that we have him yet because he tends to go just like a little bit earlier than we've been. Like we got kind of sniped on him on the board I'm looking at the 5'11". He went 5'10". I personally would have been arguing for him over Juju. So I'm a fan. He does seem to be kind of moving up. One of these guys I'm probably not getting enough of because he's moving up boards. But yeah, I think the type of profile that you do want to bet on, even though is very boom bust. But one of the weird things about him was that he was a really strong prospect if he got draft capital. Then he didn't. He was a day 3 guy, so that kind of put me off of him more than I should have been. But now that he's produced, the team clearly views him as like a key piece of the offense. Like that's sort of some of that draft capital, right? Like a team assessment is backing him and everything, and he's got the opportunity part locked in, it seems like. So yeah, I know it was kind of just this stretch run where he had all these targets and guys were hurt and stuff, but it makes a lot of sense that Jared Goff loves throwing to his slot receiver. That's exactly what he did in LA. That's why Amon-Ra St. Brown was getting pushed up correctly above where you would have expected based on draft capital in dynasty leagues, because people were making that same connection, and it turned out to be true. So yeah, I think he makes a ton of sense in the 5th round. Kind of part of that 5-6 turn mix. Nice value there.
What about Kadarius Toney? Where are you at on him, Pat?
I've started to get a little bit nervous about Toney. I was drafting a lot of him. I just worry, I know he's super talented, but there's also a reason why he didn't play a ton. There was trade rumors, and he seems to be constantly kind of dealing with something nagging. In a weird way, I wonder if he's better in best ball type of thing, where it's we never know when it's going to happen. When he's fully healthy and up to speed and everything, he just crushes. But he feels like he could be a little bit tough and kind of I don't know. I just worry that he's not going to be available for the whole season based on some of the reports out of camp and stuff. But I mean, maybe that's just me being a little bit too nervous about it, because where he's going, there's a ton of upside. So I probably just need to man up and take him.
Let me throw a couple quick on the clocks at you. If you're on the clock, Toney or Christian Kirk?
Toney.
Yeah, Tony's way more exciting. Come on, Kirk is just boring, man. It's just
I'm getting a little excited about Kirk.
I wanted to lob a softball in there, just make sure he's that was ready for the pitch. All right. Toney or Sky Moore?
Do I get to play the ADP game? Because then I'd probably go Toney and hope to get more.
No, you don't get to play the ADP game. You're gonna lose more.
Give me more
if you don't take him now.
Wheeler likes Kirk there.
Guys, I took Christian Kirk last night. I think I took a Christian Kirk share, Andrew, in the 7th round.
This is a situation where Wheeler tells on you. Hey Wheeler, from now on, I need to know when Theo's taking Kirk without my knowledge. Add it to the Hunter Henry alert.
I think I'm reading this as Wheeler being on the Kirk train.
No, I know that he is. I'm saying I need to know.
Yeah,
I'm not.
No, I took him last night. I'm just kind of warming up to the fact that I think he's going to get peppered with targets. I think he's got a path to wide receiver 2 land. Again, I love Toney. I've drafted a lot of Toney, but I think that's a difficult question because Toney's not out there, and Kirk is could see this massive target share, and they're having Kirk operate out of the slot. He's interesting. I have one other second-year wide receiver. Kind of where are you at on? And we talk about the last couple of wide receivers we get really kind of comfortable drafting. Nico Collins is a guy that I love getting in my builds. I think he's still affordable. Are you kind of buying into it a little bit, Pat, or are you still very skeptical?
I haven't really been buying into Collins as much. It's not an offense I want a lot of pieces of. He wasn't that good as a rookie. Wasn't terrible, but he's kind of in a like yards per route run type of bucket where I was like, he's sort of like Donovan Peoples-Jones or something, where it's like really, he's going to be probably basically a bet on athleticism, and you're hoping maybe he's like Terry McLaurin or something, but because he didn't really flash as a rookie, I'm not like super excited about him given the offensive context. And Brandon Cooks has shown that he can earn a ton of targets and really be kind of a target hog there. So, and to be honest, I think Brevin Jordan might be. It seems like he's actually going to get a lot of playing time, and he's like a legit receiver from the tight end position. So, I actually don't know if it's quite as wide open in terms of the secondary target as people might assume.
My most owned tight end on FFPC, Mr. Brevin Jordan. Let's get him some targets.
If Brevin is the second most targeted guy on Houston, we are all way too low on him. There's no doubt.
We have a lot of Brevin Jordan between us collectively, and the goes.
I'm more than happy to have plenty, but I mean, he should be going like in the 8th round or something like that if he's going to be second targets on Houston, because they're going to be throwing a lot. For me,
a lot.
And like later in the same round or something close to that.
You broke up there for me.
I think you broke up a bit.
Yeah, broke up for a second.
Sorry. For me, Nico is hard to draft because you can always get DJ Chark later in that round generally. So I'm going Chark almost every time.
Is there any other second-year wide receivers we want Pat's opinion on, guys? Or are we good to move on?
I think we hit pretty much all of them. Didn't we?
Aside from Josh Palmer's concussion, I don't know if you want to. No.
Yeah,
he looked pretty good. I don't know if his profile is there though.
I think he's pretty solid. He's similar to Nico for me, where he didn't show that much, but he plays on the Chargers, so I'm just more interested.
Yeah. I'm normally done taking wide receivers at that point, at the Collins and Palmer. But if they're there and they slip past ADP, I don't mind taking them.
Yep.
And Andrew usually has 7 or 8 by the time Nico's being drafted anyway. So
I've been really good this year. I don't think I'm going too crazy.
Especially Hunter Henry. He loves Hunter Henry.
Good grief. I like that. Those are the first words out of JD's mouth.
JD pops right in to say that.
I couldn't miss the opportunity. I jumped right in.
So one player who seems kind of universally loved, you can't really find an analyst who's kind of off of him. I took him full disclosure, I took him at the 2-3 turn in an FFPC main. It's Michael Pittman. Is he a player that is maybe being drafted at the peak of his outcomes, though? Like, does that kind of factor in where, let's say you're drafting from the 1 or the 2 spot and you really want to put a hammer on top of a, Taylor or McCaffrey build? Is Pittman that guy? What way are you approaching Michael Pittman right now, Pat?
He's not that guy for me, but I'm sort of getting like scared to death of it because, like you said, like there's no one that's out on him, and I'm not out on him. I just, when I look at who else I can take there, like to me putting that hammer on, I'd rather do it with T. Higgins and AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm. Same.
I love DJ Moore. Like if he was going if it was like Michael Pittman or Mike Williams, I would be taking Pittman, and I feel good about it. But Moore's ADP has also made it tougher because I like Moore more than Pittman, and maybe, not maybe, I'm clearly on an island there. But it just makes it tough where it's like I want to get I think getting more exposure is really nice right now because I don't get why his ADP hasn't moved up more with Baker Mayfield. But yeah, is Pittman being drafted as ceiling outcome? No. Like he could be on the 1-2 turn next year, I think. So it makes me nervous that I've got these kind of preferences towards the other wide receivers in the range that's making it hard for me to get really even with the field on Pittman or really have much exposure at all in the main event, I think. Like I'm worried that we might like full fade Pittman this year, which seems bad. But at the same time, like you only get a chance to draft, T. Higgins, AJ Brown on this 1-2 turn, like we might only have like 3 chances to do that, and we're not going to get we already got sniped on AJ Brown in one of those cases. So, yeah, he's definitely like one of those guys that I'm worried about missing the boat on, because he feels like probably half a round too expensive, in my opinion. But at the same time, he's not priced at a level where it's like, a clear fade.
Dan, where are you kind of at? I know we talked about him over the last couple of weeks. Like if you get the first overall pick, is Pittman in your consideration at that the 2-3 turn? I think Dan might be.
Is he frozen?
He might be frozen.
There.
I froze up. Here we go.
He's back.
Maybe.
Back.
Yes. I
like Pittman.
I have no problem drafting him where he's going. I think he's got a ton of upside with Matt Ryan versus Carson Wentz, who he's putting up with last year. And Ryan's not afraid to target the crap out of somebody. So, and that's an offense that I think is probably going to be passing a lot more. I mean, Reich has basically gone out and said we don't want to run Jonathan Taylor near as much as we have last year. I get that he's probably not going to be, one of the top 3 wide receivers, but I also think he's probably not going to fall out of the top 8. So, that's a guy I can easily get behind, because sometimes, you don't have to win every single pick. Sometimes you just got to hold serve.
And Pat, I don't know.
That's a great point. Great point, Dan.
Sorry, I just want to throw in. I don't know, Pat, if this, like, for me, it's like we've already seen it, right? Like T. Higgins already given you that top 12. Like you haven't seen it from Pittman yet. Same with AJ Brown, right? You've seen AJ Brown give you like week winning numbers. So for me, I'll always lean when it's close, the guy who's shown it to me, especially at the receiver position, because we've seen it in the past where higher chance that you'll see those guys in the top 12 again if they've already been there. So that's where and then you mentioned the guys that you take Pittman ahead of, and that's kind of, I think, where the sweet spot is. Andrew, do you disagree with that? You have anything different? I know you're the wide receiver king. You love to piss yellow.
Yeah, I was running social at that point, JD, and wasn't paying attention at all to what you just said. Saw some dude drinking a beer through a hot dog straw, and then I asked a question in the chat. So you're gonna have to take that one away from me. Thank you.
What's a hot dog straw?
Some dude at the Yankees game stuck a straw through a hot dog and started drinking his beer through it. John Boy posted the video just before we went live here. So I guess that's a good question for Pat. Which wide receiver, is like drinking a beer through a hot dog straw for you? Which wide receiver makes you sick to your stomach doing it?
That's your Adam Thielen, Andrew. That's your Adam.
Yeah.
Thielen.
Oh yes, good point. Yes, absolutely, yes. Adam Thielen for me. Which I'll never do it though.
Never. No Thielen.
I'm not drafting Keenan, and I just feel
like Keenan a hot dog straw guy now.
Wow.
Are we taking Mike Williams if we get there?
Zero.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
I am Mike Williams over Keenan officially. I took Mike Williams last night. I think it's
every time.
You're looking at like the Keenan needs a ton of targets to return value where he's being taken. Mike Williams could have 20 less targets and still outscore him potentially. And if Keenan Allen's targets go down even like 10%, I think he's toast where he's being drafted. So I don't know. I'm on the Williams train, but Thielen's not quite hot dog straw for me, and he just happens to be old. He just happens to be old.
He's too cheap to be the hot dog straw guy. I mean,
100%.
I don't think there are any hot dog straw guys in that round.
I'll say Robert Woods is a hot dog straw guy for me. I know that we're buying into like the Burks is struggling, but I think I
gotta change the name of the show, man.
Hot dog straw night.
Where are you guys at on Burks? Because he hasn't fallen as much as I thought he might.
Still in. His ADP's held. I'm still in.
Yeah, value.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much anybody else who's had the drumbeat of negative press that he's had.
I'm a proponent of Esma, so I'm all in the Burks train.
At the end of the day, we have a coach who said he would cut off his manhood to win a Super Bowl. I think he's going to be able to get his best players on the field in order to win. I don't buy into the Vrabel's going to hold a a grudge when it's going to be like Westbrook Ekine and like Robert Woods and Austin Hooper as the way to move the ball. So I think that they're in too deep. And at the end of the day, I believe in Burks. And right now you get Burks in like the 10th round. We've seen multiple drafts, big money drafts, where Romeo Dubs has gone ahead of Treylon Burks. It's crazy. So
I was gonna ask Pat if he thinks Dubs or Pickens or one of these guys that are on fire right now with, you know, in fantasy land, or do any of those become hot dog straw guys?
Dubs is getting close, right? I mean, it's a day 3 guy. Aaron Rodgers was like advocating for not Dubs to start, apparently. So that doesn't seem great. You know, I don't know. I mean, that seems like, remember Tajay Sharp, and like it's like, oh, he's gonna start. He's gonna start. It's like still a day 3 guy. You know, you got to be careful. Pickens, I think, the steam makes a lot more sense. He probably would have been like an early first round wide receiver if he didn't tear his ACL. Really productive right out of the gate at Georgia, and yeah, I mean, he still got drafted pretty early in the second round. So the overall offense makes it a little hard, but I think from a prospect profile perspective, I can get behind it. Him getting kind of steamed up boards. I mean, we took Sky Moore over him in one of our most recent drafts last week, and then it's like, who are we to judge? Like, if we're drafting second round wide receivers in the 7th round or whatever, like you can. Pickens is certainly able to come off the board anytime before or after that pick, I think. So
we've talked about a lot of these 4th and 5th round wide receivers, and if you look at an NFFC or FFPC board, FFWC, it's like straight yellow. It'll be like, you know, out of 24 guys, there'll be like 15 yellow. Are there any wide receivers going in the 4th or 5th round that you don't want exposure on? And I'll bring up 2 names that you haven't talked about tonight. DK Metcalf, Deontay Johnson, 2 guys who've had great fantasy success. They're going in this range now. We have questions about their potential offense, potential roles. Kind of where are you at on those? Any avoids in the 4th and 5th, and kind of your thoughts on those 2?
No, I think those guys are in play for sure. They're not like my favorite of that tier, but Deontay, I mean, in terms of like the best ball stuff, Deontay will fall to the 6th round sometimes in these DraftKings rooms. I mean, I think I'm way overweight on Deontay in best ball. DK probably, you know, someone that I'm not quite as excited about just because of how bad the offense could be. But I don't know if Geno Smith is like somewhat competent. You know, it's still DK Metcalf. So that both those guys, I think particularly DK, the risk is like a pretty priced in. Looking at the most recent board we did, he went wide receiver 30. Like, there's not 29 wide receivers better than DK Metcalf. So I don't know. I think he's pretty good there. Some of the guys I like a lot, I think Gabe Davis, I'm still in, even though you know, he's obviously gotten really pricey. It does not seem like there's really any threat to his playing time as the secondary outside wide receiver. And he was very good last year. Not just obviously the playoff game helped, but you know, I think he's sort of like maybe a year behind schedule as a day 3 guy, to where, you know, in some ways it's sort of like his second year breakout because he spent his entire rookie season and most of his sophomore season just proving he should be on the field. And so now he gets a chance to be out there all the time with Josh Allen. I think it'd be really nice. And then I've been surprised Jerry Jeudy hasn't moved up more post Tim Patrick injury. He's someone that's like Sutton. It's like we're so sure, and I like Sutton, but you know, he's like in the late 3rd or whatever. Jerry Jeudy going, you know, 12, 14 picks around later, like that made more sense when it looked like Jeudy was going to have trouble getting a full slate of routes because Tim Patrick was going to be out there and, you know, he's more the slot guy. But that's not the case anymore. It's not going to be like KJ Hamler and Cortland Sutton in 2 wide receiver sets. Judy's going to be out there. So I've been surprised he's not more like in the mid 4th, early 4th.
Well, we had a Denver question, but you basically segued into it. Does the lack of a clear tight end 1, looks like it might be a little more tight end by committee. Alberto Quibunum seems to be kind of dusted, and Dulcich is a rookie. Does the lack of clarity at the tight end position make you also more apt to draft the Denver wide receivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think you talk about all of a sudden the targets might consolidate in Denver. It looked like, you know, in June, like one of the most spread out target trees in the entire league. You lose Patrick. The tight end by committee stuff, the other tight ends are pure blockers. So they're not stealing any targets away from, you know, I mean, they'll steal a little, but way less than you might see from Howard O if he was out there all the time, who's really flashed as a receiver. So yeah, I think it definitely helps at the margins. And if it ends up being just Judy and Sutton here, I'd rather have Sutton, but Judy could absolutely smash. If you're getting him at the 4-5 turn, which he went last Friday, the 4-5 turn. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, the last main event he went 5-5, Judy.
Yeah.
I think that's to me, Judy's becoming kind of a value. I mean, we see Sutton kind of get pushed up. I'm definitely into Judy right now. This is a question kind of for everyone. Sean Siegel and Ben Gretsch on the Stealing Bananas podcast did an awesome, really, really well done podcast. The second part, I think, is coming out, but they predicted the 2023 first round. Pat, I'd like to get your opinion on who you think are the top, you can take it as far as you want, but at least your top two in the 2023 first round. We could stay in FFPC. You could take it to the top three if you'd like, and then we kind of go around the horn.
Yeah, I think Taylor and probably McCaffrey, and then I liked Ben's take on it being Chase as kind of, quarterback uncertainty in Minnesota. Potentially, it seems like maybe they'll move on from Kirk Cousins, and Chase, I think, has a very, very good chance to emerge as kind of the clear best wide receiver in football, paired with Joe Burrow. Offensive line looking a lot better. It might be really easy to kind of envision just this absolutely dominant, earth-shattering 2023 from Jamar Chase. I think he could potentially be the 101 if this year is good enough. But I would probably bet on Taylor to be the 101 just because he feels like that type of back where he's gonna he could suffer a season-ending injury and still be like the 103 or something. He's just so good and so young that if he does kind of anything close to what we're hoping for this year, we're going to be betting on him in a big way next year as well.
For me, I think it's Justin Jefferson 1 and Chase 2. I think they're both such transcendent talents. I think we saw the wide receiver position get pushed up this year, and I think next year kind of takes it up a notch. I think both those guys are going to smash, and I think it's kind of like one propping the other one up. And I think next year will be bang, bang, wide receiver. I understand the argument for McCaffrey, but I think he's just a little bit older, and I think there's always ages in these high-stakes drafts. So I'm going to go Jefferson and Chase with my 1-2. Dan, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, this is barring, like Javonte Williams having some sort of a transcendent season or something like that, which could definitely push him all the way up there. I'm a lot less concerned about Cousins leaving Minnesota. I think, with O'Connell there, I don't think they're going to push out Cousins unless they've got a really, really good option to replace him with. So, I think, they've always managed to, find a way to redo his deal so it works for, at least this year, if not next year. And I think they'll probably find a way to do that again if the offense plays the way that they want it to play. If it doesn't play that way, then Jefferson's not going to be in the picture for 101 anyway. So, I guess the way I look at it is Cousins isn't going to keep, or lack of Cousins isn't going to keep Jefferson out of the 101.
Andrew or JD?
Yeah, you guys know my love for JJ. I mean, I think T. Higgins is what deters Chase from being the 101. I think he's going to be more significant. We saw it in the playoffs how he just gives you those winning weeks. I think that'll be more prevalent this week just as Chase gets more attention. And I mean, who's Justin Jefferson fighting targets with? Thielen. We all know what Andrew thinks of him. Irv Smith, we've never seen it. KJ Osborne is nice as a flyer, but so for me, JJ will be the 101 in my opinion. Andrew, you disagree?
No, agreed. I like Pitts. I like Dan just throwing out a million names and then just saying Javonte too because I like him and I almost think that Javonte could be the 101, but a false flag 101, almost of maybe they did it because of the Broncos season or Russell Hustle and Bustle made a man Russell Wilson, and it kind of looks like it's all Javonte, and and maybe it looks like he's in line for historic season coming up. And
who is that? Who's that Denver back a few years back that you're
CJ Anderson.
Anderson gave you value. This was a guy that never did anything, and he was in Denver, and pretty sure
Marshall Moreno,
Monty Ball.
Ball.
Oh, good names.
Monty Ball. That's it. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Javonte Williams false flag has to be the
So
time.
good.
No, I don't know. Javonte Williams hot dog straw.
Hard to beat. I don't know.
Well, can I ask you guys about how high you think AJ Brown could go? Because I feel like he could rise considerably.
I love his value right now, man. He's beautiful. I have him up there with that after that top tier. I'll take him.
I think that there's a good chance that he finds his way back in the first round. I think that there's a chance that we see. There's a scenario where I really hope it's not the scenario for Diggs because I have a ton of them. But there's a scenario where where Lamb, because Lamb might not meet. There's a chance that Lamb loses value too, and then there's a chance that Adams a year older and Kupp a year older all kind of lose a little luster. If AJ Brown is like wide receiver 6. And we think that his role is going to grow in Philly, with Jalen Hurts, and they have this, connection. I think next year AJ Brown going at like the, somewhere inside that top 12 is definitely in the range of outcomes. I might like that bet more than like, you saying one of the 2 Miami wide receivers, which I think would also potentially be in play with a smash. But I think AJ Brown I think he'd be right there. And I think if AJ has a smash season and Michael Pittman has the kind of season that you are saying you think he could have and that I'm hoping he has, I still think AJ would go higher than Pittman because AJ's always got the juice, especially with the overhyped sleeper.
Definitely. You know that I'm always an AJ 101 guy. So I am always on board with his chances of doing that.
We're getting a little long here. I want to get your 0 RB running back targets, and we could change the name. It doesn't have to be 0 RB, but who are your double-digit round RBs that you're really happy to walk away with right now?
Depth RBs, your depth RBs. Just call them depth RBs.
Well, no, for Pat, those are his starters.
Yeah, what do you mean depth, dude?
J.D. McKissick, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean Ramondre, I was taken, and he's kind of gotten a little bit pricier now. There were days where you could get him in like the late 9th. I still think he's somewhat in play.
He's still fun to take, though. Yeah,
he is still fun to take. Yeah, it feels a little bit like you're getting you can get. I think Chase Edmonds is totally in play in the 8th round. It's kind of someone who's like got a job. I like Rashad Penny, I'm into in the 9th. We went in the 9th in the most recent draft we did. I think this Kenneth Walker stuff is like not something to be ignored. I don't trust Pete Carroll at all, and if Walker misses time, that's going to open up opportunity for Rashad Penny to be in the exact same role he was in at the end of last season when he was on fire. Rashad White has really been the guy that I'm trying to prioritize like more and more. Like every time I kind of review things, I'm like, I really should be prioritizing White maybe even a little bit more. Obviously the Tom Brady stuff or whatever is a mild concern, but he's like a really, really strong receiving prospect in terms of his receiving efficiency coming out of college. And I do like that this offense, they throw to the running backs on all downs. And so the bet with White to me is not that he displaces Leonard Fournette on 3rd downs. I do not expect him to do that, but I do expect him to mix in, if he's as good as I think he might be, on early downs, and that then leads to him having some standalone value and then just massive contingency value. I think he'll make short work of the other 2 running backs there, and I think one of those guys, if they keep all 4, will be in a healthy scratch because Rashad White has been the starting kick returner, which means he's going to be active on game days, regardless of what their immediate plans are for him, giving him a chance to mix in right away. So he's like a real priority for me, and I don't know. This year's felt like kind of comfy in this like 9-10 range because like I think Patterson's totally fine there. Darrell Henderson I like, Kenneth Gainwell, Michael Carter. Damian Harris went in the 11th on Friday. Damian Harris could be a starting running back. Like, I like Ramondre Moore, but, at a certain price, Damian Harris makes a ton of sense.
I mean, how many touchdowns did Harris have last year?
I was gonna say he's going between.
15.
He went between
touchdowns.
15 touchdowns.
And he's getting pushed into the double-digit rounds.
he went between Hines and Julio Jones last night in the main event. Or yesterday's main event at 1 p.m. That's pretty crazy, man. When you think about what he did last year.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
It also, we talked about, last week, Dan, how it just shows how how sharp drafters are these days, that they're being able to kind of ignore 15 touchdowns. Maybe they're over ignoring it, but we said like 5 years ago, Damian Harris is like a 3rd round pick based on that. And people are just smarter these days. Can you please talk about Khalil Herbert a little bit? Because this is JD's favorite double-digit round guy. Underneath his T-shirt right now is a Khalil Herbert jersey. Do you have any thoughts on Khalil?
I like Khalil Herbert. Yeah, the only thing that doesn't have me like really hammering him is that the Bears' offensive line is terrible, and they seem to be setting up their second-year quarterback for failure, it's one of the most bizarre. It's been one of the most bizarre off seasons for the Bears that I can remember. It feels a little Jaguars-y from last year. I gotta be honest. I'm getting some bad vibes on the Bears, but and obviously the wide receiver room stuff, what's going on there as well. So the overall offense, I think, could be like terrible, but David Montgomery, everything looks real bad for him. He's getting special team snaps and everything, and I think they're changing up the system there in terms of like the blocking style and everything. So there's an opportunity here, not just with the new coaching staff, but potentially better fit for the scheme and everything, where Khalil Herbert just passes David Montgomery. And we know David Montgomery is limited, right? He makes guys miss, but he doesn't really do anything after that. And he's fine in the passing game, and he's not great. So Herbert, he showed a lot of juice last year, I think. I think he's talented. So he was a guy where like I thought maybe I'd missed the boat on a little bit. I thought there'd be like more steam on him, but probably just because of the general like Bears pessimism, he hasn't really rocketed up as Montgomery has kind of started to really cool. So I think there's been a really nice opportunity to kind of fix, for me, being a little bit too low on him, in kind of like June, July.
And is it possible, Pat, that because the offense isn't supposed to be good, like you would think this offense is like firing on all cylinders, like DeMont is going to have a huge season, right? Whereas like, this coaching staff obviously coming in, they're not necessarily going to, if the team's doing amazing, obviously DeMont's probably running that ship, but because like you said, the offensive line's a disaster, the offense looks like a disaster, maybe there's a higher chance Khalil gets that opportunity to kind of get more of those touches. Even though the offense does look like it might be a little shaky.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're married to anything or anybody. So
right.
They could easily just hand it over to Khalil.
Every single Goat District guest, since we got done with our rookie draft focused episodes, has been asked one question. Besides Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Cooper Kupp, which wide receiver would be your best bet to finish as wide receiver 1 overall? And you're welcome to give 2 answers here. Some guests have given 2, or if there's one you want to hang your hat on, or a sleeper.
Well, I honestly think I would take AJ Brown. Right, the other guy would be Diggs, because he's in this great offense and he can consolidate target share and just be more efficient like he was 2 years ago and get there. But the ceiling on AJ Brown is really epic. I mean, he's incredible. No one's arguing against the talent. And when you have a situation where the situation is keeping the ADP for a particular wide receiver way down below where we'd have the talent, I feel like we better be really, really super confident in that situation. And I don't really feel that we should be super confident that the Eagles are going to be this super run-heavy team as they were for parts of 2021. They actually even kind of pulled up from the super run-heavy period that they had kind of in like the, week 12, 13 type of range. They kind of went back towards being balanced from when they were the most run heavy before. But they were quite pass heavy to begin the season. And then, it's a coaching staff that philosophically, it's not like these guys didn't come from like the Vrabel school or something. They're basically from like the Andy Reid tree, from the Reich tree. So I think they would prefer to have a pass first offense. They'd prefer to build their team around playmakers in the passing game, as evidenced by the fact that they just traded for AJ Brown. And they've got Devontae Smith now in a secondary role, which I think is good. I think he's a very good secondary option. Dallas Goedert, I think, potentially is a star at the tight end position. He had a higher target share than Devontae Smith post Zach Ertz trade last year. He had over 2 yards per route run. I think he's going to be a lot for defenses to handle. If Smith is excelling as a secondary receiver, if Dallas Goedert is an elite tight end, and if AJ Brown is AJ Brown, this team's going to throw a lot. Jalen Hurts is going to have to absolutely suck for them not to throw. I don't think they're going to be like the Bills, but I don't think they'll also kind of be this Titans-esque super run-heavy team. And you also have to keep in mind, Brown's coming from the Titans. He's coming from a really run-heavy team. There's a lot of room to grow, actually. We knew they were going to be run-heavy in Tennessee. We don't know that for a fact in Philadelphia. So I think that, yes, the floor is somewhat low with A.J. Brown, with better target competition on a potentially run-heavy team, but I think the ceiling is wide receiver 1.
And the offensive line allows all those things to happen, right, Pat? Like, Goddard becoming a star, them getting those targets out to these receivers, and Smith is, like you said, a very strong receiver too, and might be a bit undervalued right now.
Andrew, what is your question?
Oh, thank God, Theo. Yes. Pat, one question for you. It's a game we play with. JD, can you flash the board on the screen? Pat, it's a game that the GOAT District plays with all the guests, and it's called Defend Andrew's Honor. So Dan and I were talking about this before we did our main. So luckily I didn't do this to him. But in the main that we drafted against each other last Wednesday, and you guys did a stream for this. You were team 8, I was team 6, but we both had a similar 1 quarterback, 1 tight end before round 6 construction. So I went Allen 4th, Goddard 6th. You all went Kittle 4th round, Justin Herbert 6th round. Can we have a conversation really quickly around, typically that has been more or less, I'll just be extreme here, a death sentence in FFPC. Do you see that still as a death sentence of roster construction this year? Or, and again, leading question here, how I was thinking about it, does the wide receiver tier get kind of flat there in 5, 6, 7 maybe, to where you have some optionality as to how you want to build that team? And so, anyways, the segment's called Defend Andrew's Honor again. So you should probably keep that in mind as you answer the question. But
so wait, what are you worried is the death sentence?
The early quarterback, early tight end. Like I think traditionally it's been pretty tough, especially through round 6. And I think that's just because we've seen, maybe it's dead zone, maybe it's just the wide receivers like the Cup and Deebo Samuel, like last year, absolutely smashing. I'll just say before you go, not my preferred construction as to what I did there with the Goddard in the 6th. But if you look at that 6th round, there was just a ton of receivers totally cleared out, and still was able to get a few interesting options. You guys were too, with Devonta Smith in 7, and you with Drake London in 7. But if you could just speak a little bit about like how you see that roster construction this year, and if you think that we're already dead in the water, or do you think that there's a real possibility, just depending on how the draft board falls?
Yeah, like to me, I mean, what were you supposed to do in round 6? Yeah. Like take Adam Thielen?
Yeah.
Like take Dallas Goedert. It's fine.
Hey.
Yeah. So is that just like a how the board is this year? Like, I think that I obviously subscribe to some of the running back, or a lot of the running back dead zone stuff, but I've really seen these wide receivers, and it does suck when the round 5 clears out. But man, like round 6, 7, 8, like I think it's pretty flat, and as long as you can still get a couple of them, I'm okay. Like how do you see those couple of rounds there, and like how just how flat is maybe 6 through 8, 5 through 8, I guess, depending on the draft?
Yeah, I think the running back dead zone stuff, I buy into it as well. And I feel like the market is buying into it in a big way. I mean, it does feel like, a couple years ago, one of these, it's not like all the guys would just hang out there, but there would be like a couple that would slip around, and then you could kind of, build in the 6th round, get a guy that you felt really good about after, 2 guys you love in the 4th and 5th or something. But here it's like, I mean, we got Elijah Moore at the end of the 5th. It feels like, this whole tier's going off.
Yeah.
Like before you pick once, and then a whole tier goes off before you pick again. So to me, I mean, the Josh Allen, that he's tough for me this year because I do think he falls right into the tier where I want to get a couple guys. But then after that, like I said, ton of Kyler. We have a Herbert pick, I believe we got in the 6th. Want to get more Mahomes in the 6-7 type of range. So that part of the reason for that is that I think the wide receiver tier break is pretty big right around kind of round 6. Even sometimes like towards the end of round 5, depending on how thirsty the room is for wide receivers. I think you want to factor that into some of your early decisions. Like in one of the drafts that we did last week, we ended up taking Travis Etienne in the 3rd after a massive run at wide receiver that I felt like left us without a wide receiver from that
And
tier.
I may be even showing that board, to be honest with you, Pat.
So this was the one we were out of. For this one, we were out of the 5.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm one over. Yep.
But on this board we had Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, A.J. Brown, and D.J. Moore all go off before our pick at 305. Took Travis Etienne, and then we ended up taking Breece Hall in the 4th round. My instincts tell me it's fine. You'll get a wide receiver you love in the 5th. Didn't happen. The 5th round, it was basically we were already down to Elijah Moore, who I like, but is our wide receiver 2 there. We ended up taking Godwin, but as our wide receiver 2, Godwin's a pretty tough wide receiver 2, given his early season start. So I think the rooms really do feel like they're prioritizing wide receiver more in 4-5. I think kind of a point of emphasis for the rest of my drafts is going to be trying to make sure that if I haven't gone wide receiver in the first couple rounds, that I want to get 2 from that range before the tier break. I feel like there's another tier break kind of at the endish of round 7, sometimes even before that. It starts, I don't know. I've actually been frustrated and kind of, the hot dog costume thing if we're all trying to figure out who did this. Why is everyone taking all the wide receivers now?
A lot of hot dog talk tonight.
Yeah, there is. But it is frustrating when, you advocate for wide receivers early and everyone does it.
I like it.
Why do these people listen to me? I don't get it.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know if you did a great
annoying
job with the defending my honor, Pat, but I'll accept it.
I think the Goddard pick is fine. What I would say is,
Josh Allen.
You set yourself up to miss this quarterback tier. So
I think it's always tough to be the first to take a quarterback.
Yeah.
In one.
That's what I said. In the post-mortem was the problem isn't Goddard. The problem is Josh Allen.
Especially when you're in the middle. Especially when you're in the middle, Andrew. Yeah. It's easier to kind of just fit in, slide into that QB run whenever it starts.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, I definitely dodged defending your honor. I will cop to that.
All right, well played. All right, I'm out of questions then. That was it. That's all I really had on the agenda.
Theo, where are we at? Are we we good to let Pat go, man? We got
we got a lot out of Pat tonight.
We got 90 out of it.
Generous with your time, yeah.
We
appreciate that. We're actually at a very rare Goat District moment where Dan and I are on the clock, and a team we're combined with, and Andrew and I are on a team that we're combined with on the clock. And I think Andrew and I might feel better about what just happened, the previous pick, than Dan and I will. But little spoiler alert, Dan.
Yeah. Well, I've already peeked ahead to see, and I mean, the guy did what any person with a brain cell would do, and took Jamar Chase at 7. So leaving us at 8 with.
Whoa.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, it was like you see Jamar Chase sitting there and you're one away and you're like, there's no chance that the drafter at 7 is going to let Chase by. So,
although I have a Jamar Chase main event 110 share. I like to flex that on the GOAT District as often as possible. Yeah. So my Chase Swift team is.
We all want to be in those rooms. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's
If
pretty
we
sweet.
could all be Theo, huh?
But the problem is when I'm in that room, I'm at like the 103. So
Yeah,
I totally miss out on it.
Hey, JD, one more T-shirt idea from a T-shirt intern before we go. In our main event, Theo Guilds and I have we've coined the term Tijuana Donkey Show out of Team 12. So he's an absolute mess.
You coined that. It's excellent. Nobody knows what it means. Nobody.
Yeah, so we
quite
need some
understands.
Tijuana Donkey Show shirts, and you can pick which graphic you want to put on that, JD. You're more than welcome to choose from whatever clip art says.
Man, we're gonna owe our intern a lot of money with all the ideas between the graphic designers, the intern. It's these T-shirts are costing a lot. Pat, this has been great, man. We appreciate you jumping on. Guys, check out. I'm sure you already are, but just in case, the one-off that might not already have Pat in their Twitter follows at Pat Kerrane. No brainer. I love the Good Football Show. I love that you've been added to the roster on there. It's definitely added a nice dynamic to it. We all enjoy ship chasing, so we appreciate you tonight, Pat. Thanks for joining us. Share anything else you want to share before we close this bad boy out.
Tomorrow I'm hoping to have out my article on legendary running back upside this year. Last year I did a series kind of talking about the target profile for early round running backs, the guys you can absolutely smash and win you your whole league. And I'm going through using that profile to look at this year's early round running backs and kind of painting the upside and downside scenarios, basically, but then also just saying whether or not I'm targeting them. And that should be out tomorrow on rotoworld.com.
Would hate to see Gibson on that again this year.
Well, Gibson's not going early, so
Yeah.
Gibson's becoming one of those zero RB late round.
yeah.
Yep, guys.
Gibson in the 10th these days.
Yeah. Good value. Now we appreciate it, Pat. Go, guys. Stay tuned for that tomorrow. Go check out Pat on the Twitter machine and all the other places we mentioned. Check out the links below. It was nice to have a full house, man. We got to get Dan, Theo, and Andrew on more often when we get these things going. It's definitely more fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. The chat's been fire as usual. We appreciate you guys. Smash the like, smash the subscribe. Help us get to 500, man. We're only a couple away from 500 subs. We appreciate the support, guys. Stay tuned. Actually, Theo, before I close it, I always love asking you, give me some heat, man. What do we have coming on the district?
So this week we're loaded. Pat started us off right. Tomorrow, Dalton Cates is going to be on press coverage with me at 4:45 Eastern time from Yards Per Gretch and also Mojo. Dalton's been on the GOAT District before. Super, super sharp. On Wednesday, Dan has fantasy football legend Scott Pianowski of Yahoo and another one-on-one press coverage. And then Thursday, we have one of our most fun episodes of the season where we have You Can't Handle the Truth. JD, that was a good one. But we have It's a Trap, which is an awesome show where I think, JD, you've been doing this for maybe about 3-4 years now, where we have two big-time high-stakes players, Noah Riddell from the FFPC streets and Tommy Libretti, last year's NFFC Primetime and Silver Bullet champion, coming on with the four of us to give our fades this year. So we're going to be giving fades at different points in the draft and different positions. So we're loaded this week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun getting Noah on. Hopefully he's got a squat machine ready for us. Guys who tuned in with us last time he was on will know what I'm talking about. But this was a blast tonight. Make sure you tune in. We got a loaded week, guys. So make sure you subscribe so you get those notices. And we'll check you all later.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Pat, I totally forgot to give you props for the best freeze face in the game for fantasy. are priceless on ship chasing. That was part of my intro, and I totally dropped it.
No worries. I just saw this hot dog straw video. It's disgusting.
It's horrifying.
It really is.
JD's trying to ask you a question. I have no idea what you're talking about, JD. I was just staring at my phone. This dude crushing a hot dog beer.
Horrible. It's awful. It's quite awful.
Who posted that one?